I'm Jessica Pearson and I'm going to be going through a series of 3 creative workshops with you based on creative workflow and how we can use it effectively in order to maybe pick back up an old project that you've left behind and got stuck in a bit of a creative rut with, or to start a new one altogether. And we're going to do this based on my project Restyled and how I researched in order to build that into what it was. So just a bit of background for you so you know what I'm talking about. My project Restyled was a photographic campaign which was a promotion of second-hand fashion and using it as an alternative to fast fashion to fight like the modern slavery issues within the fashion industry. This is the kind of imagery I produced. In this first talk I'm going to be explaining my workflow and how I came to my final images, and then in the next talk we're going to look at how zines and collaborations can benefit your creative projects to give them more longevity. And then in the last one we're going to be asking ourselves what next and how I can turn this into my career, into my portfolio, rather than it just being a project that gets left behind. I started by looking at my old projects in order to form my research for Restyled. I decided to create this notebook, which basically got me through the start to the end of Restyled. I looked back at my old project, which was based on tattoos. I created a pros and cons list, which really helped me because I understood what I really loved about the project and what I thought I could improve on. So I kind of took the pros from it, which the one that I took from it was that it was really relevant in today's society. So I knew that I wanted to produce a project that was relevant. So I took that information and created my list of 21st century problems, which sounds really cliche, but it gave me like some grounding to start researching on. And I really got myself stuck in a creative rut, and you've got to completely understand that this is normal. You can't try and fight a creative rut. The best thing to do is like step away. And when I was trying to create my project for Restyled, I would go swimming a lot because I couldn't take my laptop, I couldn't take my phone in, I was just kind of left with my thoughts. It didn't help initially, it did in the end, but just then it didn't help. And I got my inspiration from a charity called Labour Behind the Label. And they're a charity that specialise in fighting for the rights of the garment workers, and they campaign a lot against H&M and that type of people. So that's how I started to feel inspired and move towards that. And like before that, the only thing I really knew that I wanted to do was shoot film. That's what formed my love of photography. I shot it on my A-level and I knew that I wanted to go back to that, and I think more and more people relate to the honest truth of film. And then I decided to create a big pile of research, which, yes, it sounds boring to some people, but I really wanted to know, like, I wanted a good grounding about my project. I wanted to be able to, somebody to be able to come up to me and ask me why I was doing it, and I had the facts to be able to say, well, this is the exact reason. And I really deeply studied the impacts of fast fashion on the environment, on the people that was working for these companies. I really started to develop this anger for it, and even if after just watching, say, Stacey Dooley's Fashion's Dirty Secrets, I had so much anger towards the fashion industry. I then had to make a split decision about my project, and I had to decide what tone of project I wanted. I was like, I can go and I can fight this negative cause of fast fashion, but it's just me. Like, I'm there fighting, and is that really going to do any good? Or I can flip it on its head and say, this is how you could shop positively. You could go and buy secondhand. I could like influence a small community of people around me rather than aiming to fight the industry, which in my creative project then I probably couldn't really do. So this brings me to my point of you constantly need to question yourself through my research. You need to say, why am I doing this? Am I doing it to influence people? Am I doing it to express myself? When you found your reason, constantly question that decision. Always ask yourself, why am I doing this? I then thought, well, I'm doing that and I know that I want to promote secondhand fashion, and then I had to take it back to the photography. Now I always keep like a massive stack of books, well that's not massive, that's a small collection, but my books to always refer to instantly, and I always tend to refer to the same ones pretty much straight away. And as you can see, I'm trying to start my next creative project now, which is why my wall's covered in sticky notes and all of my old work is on my wall, so I can refer back to it. While I was in the process of Restyled, I went to the Nottingham Contemporary, and then the exhibition that was on was the Still I Rise, which probably a lot of you can remember because it was a pretty powerful and a pretty big exhibition for the Nottingham Contemporary to host. We need to make sure that we do make use of it because it's such a good resource for us to go and look at. And to be fair, the Still I Rise exhibition didn't really relate to the project that I was doing, but I still went along because you can take so much influence from stuff like that. They handed out these cue cards with questions on, and I knew, and that influenced me when I wanted to exhibit my project, that I wanted an exhibition that people could be a part of, that people could touch, that people could question. The way that they created this map, there was loads of different features, and you are subconsciously influenced by these things that you might not realise at the time. That's when I really started to think about how I wanted Restyled to look, and I wanted something to link it together that wasn't just the models wearing the clothes, but I didn't know what. I was getting myself into a real creative rut, so I decided that now was the time to start shooting. So I went out and I shot 2 models wearing second-hand clothes. That was it. There was no extra props. I just went and shot them wearing 2 second-hand clothes. I hated it. Like, I shot them on film and they were just stood there, and it just didn't scream what I wanted it to scream. It wasn't a campaign, it was just people wearing clothes. That's when I got myself into a creative rut again, so I had to go swimming. Like, I had to completely distance myself away from it. When I took myself away from it, I eventually came up with the idea of the chair walking my dog. So, and I shot it and I instantly fell in love. I just took a random chair out of my garage and I photographed someone in second-hand clothes on the chair, and then that's when it all fell together. And then I had to bring the concept back in and go and buy a second-hand chair, and then it all kind of fell together. And you've got to appreciate the creative rut in order to form your project and bring it all together. I formed then the initial 2 key elements, that I wanted all of the models to be sat on a chair and I wanted it to be shot from below the eye level. And it was only from shooting a bit more and working with stylists that I realised that I wanted all of the colours to link and the model's clothing to link to the background. So like, what I'm trying to get at is you need to constantly research to achieve your goal. Even if it's not like you reading books and looking at videos and that kind of thing, that's not just research. A lot of it's primary research. And about like 3/4 of the way through my project, I got in contact with some Nottingham-based photographers and asked them to have a look at my project with me. So I reached out and I started to produce a zine, and I took that with me and we went through it all, and I explained how I wanted to exhibit on materials, and that's when the idea of me printing on different kinds of materials came together, of me printing on different textures, which I'll go through in the second video. It kind of linked all of my images back to the raw materials, which was something that I loved. Then he came up with the idea that I could name my images based on what they were printed on. So let's say I photographed Miley and I printed her on a bedsheet, the image would be called Miley, bedsheet, which I thought was quite an interesting concept and linked it back to that fast fashion that I was speaking about initially. And it all started to come together, and I started to go to symposiums about sustainability, which gave me new ideas, and I went to a swap shop in London, which was really like quite a pivotal moment in the project for me, because I was in the same room as speakers from Fashion Revolution, and there was only about 100 in us. Like, it was quite an intimate experience, so that kind of gave me the push, seeing the leaders of that charity as something that I wanted to aspire to. Like, it gave me the push I needed to keep this project going. So try and get yourself around like-minded people, keep going, like, push for it, and you'll get there. And in the next video we're going to look at how printing on new materials can help you build a project, and how I use that, and how I produced a zine. And then we're going to look at connecting with other people and collaborating with other creators, which is probably the most important thing I'll talk about, because it really helps you perfect your craft. So I will see you in the next video.